February is the shortest month of the year, and traders on Wall Street Bets waste no time when it comes to losing money. From one user hosting an Amazon pizza party with his options gains, to another user achieving a gain of $20 million, we're gonna go over the funkiest trades of February. Love Sosa 21 is a user who is willing to get risky. Put my actual rent money for February on SoFi earning calls. Am I about to be evicted? SoFi was reporting earnings in 3 days, and they were currently trading at $7.62. If SoFi's share price didn't spike, Love Sosa would be in a sticky situation. Love Sosa says, "This is actually my rent money for February, and that is not a joke." Love Sosa buckled up and got ready for his big day. Monday came around, and earnings were reported. Luckily for Love Sosa, SoFi's earning report was spectacular. The stock jumped over 20% for the day, and Love Sosa wouldn't be put out on the streets. He shares a screenshot showing his 141% gain for the week, so it's good to know he ended up on the winning end of this trade. Risking your rent money might sound crazy, but really, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Sora 1274 is someone who began their public journey on Wall Street Bets at the end of December. Sora had what some would call beginner's luck. With just $1,500 in his account, things weren't looking particularly promising. Sora felt like crypto was due for another run, and he had his eyes set on Mara. He decided to put this $1,500 into calls on the stock that expired only 1 week later. Mara began rallying, and Sora's portfolio went through the roof. This initial gain wasn't enough though. He felt like crypto still had more room to run, so he would repeat this process 3 more times. For a whole month, he bought Mara calls that expired 1 week later. Using this strategy, he managed to grow his portfolio to a whopping $73,000. This was a 48x gain on his originally $1,500 position. Flash forward a month, and Sora would return to the subreddit. This time, his post wasn't as positive. "I'm dead inside, but thank God it's Friday." Sora includes a screenshot that shows he's down an astounding $54,000 just for the day. His portfolio was now only worth $8,000, which is a pretty steep drop considering it was worth $73K a month before this. Thought it would be a good idea to get some coin daily call options. AMD position was very minimal. Sora made an impressive amount of money with crypto-related stocks, and proceeded to lose it all with crypto-related stocks. At this point, you would expect Sora to be all out of luck. His portfolio was down about 90%, and crypto's run took a pause. Sora decided it was time to ditch crypto. Coincidentally enough, Meta would be reporting earnings soon. Inspired by Mark Zuckerberg's gains in the gym, he decided to YOLO his portfolio into Meta calls that expired at the end of the week. Friday came along, and Meta reported their earnings. The company did stupendously well for the 4th quarter, and the stock rose just over 20% for the day. Sora's portfolio had been saved. Last Friday, I went from $62,000 to $8,000, but today I got it back. Hopefully Sora locks in his $60,000 gain with the company and stops spending his money on risky options. A $60,000 gain is pretty awesome, but what if you're someone who has made $20 million trading options in the past 10 months? Fosterion18 is someone who we've already covered twice before, but he recently made a post so insane that I just couldn't pass it up. 8 million / 2,500% gain in 2 months. 20 million / 5,000% since April 2023. We've already covered Fosterion18's insane 8-figure run in 2023, but apparently $12 million just wasn't enough for him. He wanted to prove his marvelous trading spree wasn't just luck. That being said, he restarted his trading journey just 2 months ago and already made another 8 mil. After gaining 3,000% last year and reaching 12 million by August, I stopped trading and split the money into dividend stocks, see Schwab account, some real estate, and half of it went to pay estimated taxes to the IRS. Got bored and restarted trading in November with about $350K 2K I had left in my trading account that was sitting on NVDY, hit around 2 million by the end of the year, and quadrupled it since the new year. I wanted to prove it wasn't just a fluke. Fosterion 18 has had the craziest run we've ever seen, but can he really keep achieving these insane returns? Considering he's someone who has made $20 million in less than a year, where do you think his portfolio is gonna end up the next time he returns to Wall Street Bets? The Buck95 is someone who ended up with a pretty sizable gain despite only investing $400. The Buck95 had just been hit with a devastating $4,000 loss. His portfolio was worth less than $1,000 and he needed to work some magic to stay afloat. That's when he decided to YOLO $495 into SMCI. $495 may not sound like a whole lot, but at this point in time, this was more than half of his total portfolio. These calls expired in 2 days, and it was looking like these calls were gonna add to his losses for the week. However, SMCI ended up rocketing over 12% for the day, and the Buck95's portfolio would be saved. He's sitting at a 634% gain for the day and now has over $7,200 in his account. In his post to Reddit, he says, "Time to gamble on Amazon earnings. Wish me luck." If the Buck followed through with this and bought Amazon calls, then his portfolio would be looking better than ever. Amazon's earnings were phenomenal and the stock rose almost 8% on February 2nd. Trying to make money in the stock market is pretty difficult. One thing that seemingly always works, though, is claiming sign-up bonuses. Thanks to our sponsor, BankRewards.io, they make it easy to find and redeem sign-up bonuses for a variety of different banks and brokerages. Moomoo and Chime offer over $100 and 5 free stocks for simply transferring $300. Let's be honest, that's basically free money if you're willing to sign up. That's all for our sponsor. If you're interested, check out the link in the description. Snoo56029 is someone who stayed strong and ended up being rewarded for his perseverance. It was January 29th, and Snoo56029 was betting that SPY would go up for the day. SPY was trading pretty sideways throughout the day, but Snoo still felt like SPY was gonna make a big jump. Throughout the day, he would throw another $100 or $200 into SPY calls. Markets were closing in less than 2 hours, and SPY still had not made a major move. Snoo threw a few $1,000s into these calls, and he was hoping to strike gold. Luckily enough, SPY jumped about 0.5% in the last hour of the trading day. This rocketed the value of his calls and helped him snag an $11,000 gain for the day. I finally got a worthy one to post. Kept averaging down all morning. SPY 500 end of week. 2FTC is a user who was a bit too confident in their ability to choose winning stocks. I called my wife an idiot when she told me to sell BABA at $220 for a small loss. What do I do now? 2FTC is down over 6 figures, mostly due to Alibaba and NIO. Considering the stock is down 76% from its all-time high and down 31% just for the past year, it's tough to say if 2F2C is ever gonna recoup this money. I think 2F2C should sit on the sideline and let his wife manage the portfolio instead. Add Me on Dota 2 says, "Don't gamble. 40K loss in 2 days." Add Me on Dota 2 has made a string of sour investments. All my savings hovered around 25K until I decided to day trade 0 day till expiration XPX options this month. At first, you think you have an edge, then when things don't go your way, you will take more and more risk trying to make back the losses until this happens. Likely 4K account tomorrow and nothing Friday unless a miracle happens. Fortunately, this was only a year's worth of work, so it's not the end of the world, but damn, it makes me sick to my stomach. It must not make him that sick to his stomach though, because only a day later, he would return with, "Update, maybe gamble." Add Me Admian Dota ditched the Tesla and Baba calls and shifted his money over to Walmart. Luckily for him, Walmart rose about 2% for the day, and this would give him a gain of over $12,000. This put his portfolio at about $19,000, and Admian Dota 2 was officially back in the game. A day later, he would return to WallStreetBets yet again. Update number 2. Revenge trading sometimes works. In just 1 week, this user went from 47K down to 8K, then back up to 34K. He said he learned his lesson, but who knows if he's actually telling the truth. Long Washier is another user who we've talked about in a previous video, but we gotta talk about his recent post because he's done something that has never been done before. Long Washier was looking at Amazon and started feeling unexpectedly bullish. It was trading at about $156, but Long Washier felt like the stock could jump $4 before the week came to an end. He took nearly $500,000 and YOLO'd it on calls that expired in a few days. This was a very risky play. He decided that if these calls paid out the way he thought they would, he would throw a full-on pizza party for Amazon employees. The stock was trading at $160.43 Friday afternoon, and Long Washier locked in a $400,000 profit. Last week, I made $400K on Amazon calls and promised a pizza party. Yesterday, I delivered that party to Amazon warehouses and offices. Long Washier made an insane amount of money and followed through with his promise. Unfortunately though, some mods on WallStreetBets decided to permanently ban him from the subreddit. He did have a Patreon in his Reddit bio, but he never promoted this in his posts. It's sad to see a WallStreetBets legend be shunned from the community. Stock27 is a user who began investing with only about $2,000. United Health Group was trading at about $514, but he felt like the stock wouldn't be able to sustain this price. He bought puts at the $510 strike price and hoped for the best. Only a day later, the stock would drop about 4%, and the value of his puts would skyrocket. With a nearly 1,000% gain for the day, his portfolio was now sitting at $25,000. Stock27 wanted to see if he could keep this up and decided to get some puts on Trade Desk. He returned to the subreddit with day 1 of trying to lose my UNH gains. He seemed to be off to a bad start with this challenge because he was up $1,000 on his Trade Desk puts. This wouldn't last for long though, because he came back 1 day later with his second post of the series. He now only had $7,900 in his Robinhood account. That's almost $18,000 lower than it was 5 days prior. We don't really know if he withdrew some money from his account, but on day 2 of the challenge, he shows us that he's down $2,700 for the day. Stock27's portfolio went from 2K to 25K, now back down to 7K in just a few days. Stock27 had to gear up for his next trade. Feeling like a bear, he decided to get some puts on UPS. Lo and behold, UPS reported earnings for Q4 and things were looking treacherous. The share price fell 9.5% for the day, and he provided us with his latest update. Up 52% for the day, his portfolio was worth 5 figures again. Even though it's not the 25K he once had, he still managed to 6x his money in less than a week. Remote Impression 605 is someone who shows that the first is usually on the house. Put the little savings I had into this first thing Monday and was afraid of losing it all. Isn't it supposed to always be red? Starting his day with just about $1,200, he put his trust in AMD. Luckily enough, he was gifted a 500% gain. Pretty crazy for his first trade. Nvidia is my god is someone who had just about 4K a few weeks ago. He was miraculously able to take this 4K to $17,000 pretty quickly. As we all know though, most people on WallStreetBets aren't satisfied after getting a measly 325% gain. Some users would tell him to quit while he was ahead, but Nvidia's my god knew that he wasn't done yet. DWAC reported stellar earnings, and the stock would would jump an unbelievable 88% for the day. At the same time, he was also holding Tesla puts. Tesla dropped 1.6%, and this of course added to his overall gain for the day. He made a whopping $13,000 combined, but this still wasn't enough, of course. He took this $13,000 and YOLO'd it on shorting Tesla's upcoming earnings. Elon didn't come through with good news for Tesla shareholders, and the stock proceeded to drop over 12% for the day. This sent Nvidia's My God's portfolio flying up to $60,000. He had successfully taken $3,000 to over $60K, but of course, he still was not done yet. He would return exactly 1 week later with a shocking update. He had lost $10K in a single trading day. Even crazier than that, his portfolio now only has $8,600 in it. Assuming he didn't withdraw previous gains to his bank account, this means he lost $51,000 in just 1 week. Microsoft had stellar earnings and decided to dump. Jerome Powell finished the rest of my positions off, going all cash and back to the grind. Choo Choo Bear is someone who made enough money to buy a house despite having less than $3,000 2 months ago. Choo Choo Bear took $2,900 to $4,400 with plain old AMD shares. This was a pretty strong gain for just shares, so Choo Choo Bear was feeling pretty hot. FedEx was nearing all-time highs, and things were looking pretty good for the company. Choo Choo Bear stepped in and decided it was time to get puts on the company. FedEx's earnings were horrendous, and the stock dropped 12% in just 1 day. This brought Choo Choo Bear's portfolio to a staggering $27,000. Nike was reporting earnings in 2 days, and Choo Choo Bear decided to live up to his name once again. Disregarding the bulls, he acquired puts on Nike. Nike's earnings were just as bad as FedEx's. Choo Choo Bear doubled his money and now had $58,000 in his account. He then switched from being a bear to a bull and got calls on Coinbase. Only this time, he was on the losing side of the trade. Crypto was starting to cool down, and Coinbase was crashing. Choo Choo Bear lost $31,000 and now only had $21K in his account. This was no biggie though, because he had high hopes for Netflix. Netflix had splendid earnings, and Choo Choo Bear's portfolio rose from $21,000 to $61K. At this point, he had already 21x'd his money. $2,900 to $61K in just about a month is pretty impressive, but of course Choo Choo Bear wasn't done yet. With his eyes on Tesla, he decided it was time to give up his bullish ways yet again. Tesla was reporting earnings on January 25th, and Choo Choo Bear was locked and loaded with his puts. And of course, Tesla came through and blessed him up. Taking $61,000 to $173K, Choo Choo Bear had successfully 60x'd his original portfolio. I'm smart enough to realize I just got incredibly lucky, so I'm going to just buy shares with this money and say goodbye to options. I took out $6,000 to my Roth IRA so I can justify myself for full porting. Hopefully Choo Choo Bear sticks to his word and holds on to these sweet gains. Trying Spy123 is a user who bought 0-day till expiration SPY calls and hoped for the best. On January 29th, he bought 11 calls on SPY for about $23 each. He needed the stock to jump 0.25% just to break even on his position. SPY ended up trading pretty sideways throughout the day, and things weren't looking all that great for his calls. Markets would close in an hour, and SPY was still 31 cents short of his break-even price. Against all odds, SPY shot up about 0.5% over the next hour. His calls went from being nearly worthless to $214 each. With an 800% gain, he was sitting on a $2,000 profit for the day. Unfortunately though, trading Spy123 had another trade running that completely wiped out his profits. Tesla was up 5% for the day. That's not something you want to hear if you're holding Tesla puts that expire in a few days. Trading Spy123 was down 61.52% on Tesla, which equates to a $4,800 loss. PatWright333 is a user who has ultimate diamond hands. He owns 4,400 shares of Nvidia at an average cost of $11.64 a share. Prices haven't been that low since 2016, so it's safe to say that his patience paid off. This screenshot from January 18th shows that his shares are worth $2.5 million, but assuming he's still holding, his position is now worth $2.9 mil. Not shabby at all for plain shares. Ban Third Time's a Charm is someone who comes to the subreddit to give us wise advice. He says, "Learn from my mistake." He managed to lose $2,000 from a slight blunder. "I had 28 call options with 400% gains this week. I meant to sell to close at the peak, but I didn't check the drop-down box and ended up buying another 28 calls at peak price. Now I'm down 50%. Live and learn. Always check your order type. I'll update here with my final gain/loss. My only hope is that GDDY rips today." DK Rich responds with, "Don't buy options when you mean to sell them. This is the sage advice I come to this sub for. Thank you, OP." Because I Was Inverted is a user who decided he wanted to make some quick money by day trading SPY. On February 5th, Because I Was Inverted would get pretty deep into calls on the stock. 2 hours into the trading day, and SPY was already down 0.2%. He was also holding some puts on the stock, but SPY started to rebound at this point. Because I Was Inverted was down about 140K, and these options expired in 3 days, so it would be pretty risky holding until expiration. He recognized it was time to lock in, and he spent the rest of his day trying to recoup his loss. He didn't take any breaks and didn't even eat lunch for the day. This dedication definitely paid off because he was somehow able to crawl his way out of the 6-figure hole he had gotten himself into. When it was all said and done, he walked away from his computer with a $6,000 gain for the day. Being down 140K to ending up green for the day is definitely a pretty lucky turn of events. Some traders get hooked and constantly chase unlikely gains, but some actually know when it's time to step away. Opalivian saw the hype surrounding Nvidia and didn't want to be left out. The stock was already up 37% year to date, and he felt like the company would keep rolling. He got calls that expired a week later and hoped for the best. Luckily enough, he wouldn't have to wait a week to lock in a monstrous gain on his trade. The stock was up 3.15% at market open, and Opalivian's calls were up tremendously. With a variety of calls, maybe even some on other stocks, Opalivian obtained a 481% gain. That put him up 35K just for the day. Opalivian says that this is life-changing money and lets us know that he will be stepping away. His wife is happy and he wants to treat his kids to a nice surprise. Overall, it seems like this trade was a net positive for his family. Allergic to Monies is another user who got pretty lucky betting on Nvidia. On January 31st, he bought 9 calls at the $650 strike price. These contracts expired on February 2nd. The stock was only trading at about $615. He would need the stock to rise to over $650 to just break even on these contracts. Given how risky these calls were, he was able to scoop up all 9 of them for a total of just $324. Over the next 2 days, Nvidia magically rose 7.64%, and his calls would bring him an insane $13,500 profit. That's a 4,200% return on his investment in just 2 days. On top of that, he was also holding SPY calls that brought him another $12,000 in profit. These trades combined made him an impressive 25K. DPDude007 is a user who is in a bit of a pickle. We are only 1 month into the year and it's already time to dig out of a hole. Year to date, he has lost $111,000, which is 74% of his portfolio. Rivian collapsed and Intel made 100K disappear. Hopefully DPDude is able to dig himself out of this hole, but it might be pretty hard to do considering he only has a quarter of his portfolio left. I Did It For The Lols is someone who was initially pretty down on his luck. He invested $5,000 into Save shares with hopes that the merger with JetBlue would go through. As we all know now, this merger in fact did not go through, and the stock proceeded to drop 61% in only 20 minutes. A drop this severe was terrible news for I Did It for the Lulz. He had his entire portfolio on the line, and now it was only worth $1,700. Shocked but not defeated, he got ready to get revenge. He dumped what remained of his portfolio into Tesla puts and hoped for the best. Tesla's unsatisfactory earnings report helped boost his portfolio. Along with TRV and QQQ calls, I Did It for the Lulz was able to take his portfolio from $1,700 to nearly $27,000 in just about a week. He achieved a 1,500% gain, but this wasn't enough. He scooped up some spy calls, and it's safe to say that these paid off pretty well. I didn't hear no bell. $1,700 to $50,000 in 3 weeks. I Did It for the Lulz successfully 30x'd his portfolio in less than a month. On January 27th, Captain New Boy would hit WallStreetBets with "Am I doing it right?" He lost almost $1,000 in his Roth IRA. But let's be honest, guys, a 10% loss is not worthy of a WallStreetBets post. Captain New Boy knew this, so he returned 3 days later with some good news to share. He was able to completely erase his loss, and he was now up $2,100. A 24% weekly gain isn't too shabby for a retirement fund, but Captain New Boy still wasn't done just yet. With the use of Tesla puts, he was able to obtain a $2,700 gain for the day. His Roth IRA was up to almost $18,000 now, which is pretty impressive considering it was only worth about $9K a week ago. Captain New Boy prepared for another day of sophisticated investing. His day started off normal enough. He was feeling pretty bullish and bought some SPY calls. He purchased 320 contracts that expired later that day. SPY was trading at about $493, but he needed the share price to rise to $494.64 in order to break even. Unfortunately, SPY did not want to reach this break-even price. The stock would drop after opening and continue to trade sideways throughout the day. Captain New Boy returned to WallStreetBets with down $14,000 today. He had lost $14K for the day and only had $3,900 left in his Roth IRA. Only 78% done till I hit my goal of $0. Guess calls weren't a move midday. Puts on Jay was able to take his $4,800 portfolio into nearly $21K. Definitely tried to do way too much the last 2 days. Ended up only holding 2 Nvidia calls throughout the day, sold 1 at open and 3 yesterday. Tried to get in on the SMCI dip and got burned $500. FOMO'd back into Nvidia right when it started coming back down and lost another $150 or so. Totally wish I just didn't look at my phone the last 2 days, but it is what it is. Profit is profit. Can't be mad at a 15K gain in a month. Probably gonna lose $1,000 on this SMCI call that I kinda got stuck holding, but whatever. Huge shout out to Miguel Hazler, 2008 Ford Fusion, and Noah Booth for subscribing to the Diamond tier on Patreon. Click the link in the description below to be featured in future videos. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment who you think had the funkiest trade of February.